Well, it had another episode, so let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments, what do you still think of The Last of Us? Are you still watching? I am. I like the show. I think it has some stuff. There's some stuff there. But let's dissect The Last of Us. Season 2, Episode 5. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic. This show does have audio description. It's done by Point360, narrated by Roy Samuelson. So give it a look-see on Max if you need accessibility. Click like and subscribe because you don't have a blind film critic on your bucket list, and I'm adding it. It's there. I just put it in the tray. That's how it works nowadays. I just airdropped myself into your bucket list. It's creepy, I know, but it's got to be done. So, whence last we left, The Last of Us. uh, Ellie apparently had just said, I don't remember the father line. I'm going to be a dad. But that was like the last thing that they left us with in the recap from last week. I was like, that wasn't that big of a line. It didn't really impact me, but I guess, okay. So, so Ellie and Dina are still there. We do get this pre-conversation, which is like, I like The Last of Us. I need to say that because this episode, we're going to talk about some things and problems. So there's like some heavy foreshadowing here. So one of the things we learn is that Dina and Ellie are trying to get to the hospital, but we cut to this conversation between like a higher up and this sort of like, I don't know. I don't understand the rankings of this sort of non-existent wolf army. Somebody who's higher than the other person they're talking about like, what happened? Tell us what happened. And so she tells a story of how they were clearing things, and they went down and it was empty and there was nothing there. And then she sent this guy and some squad down there, and there were like the plants, the quadriceps or whatever, were all over the wall, and she got back through the radio that her guy was saying that it's in the air and that they were like choking and she couldn't really hear them, and so they shut it down. They sealed them in. She told the rest of the soldiers to seal them in because the virus had become airborne, which is super dangerous for them, obviously, because as far as we know, only one person is immune. So obviously, if all they can do is just breathe it in, then that's something they don't want to do. So they're looking for a way to contain that. So this whole floor in this hospital has this dangerous airborne virus in it, which is absolutely going to come into play later in the episode, which is why I'm saying foreshadowing. Anyway, I get it. We needed to explain it because otherwise people would have been like, what's happening? The virus isn't airborne. But also, it was kind of like, okay, so this episode, we're going to tackle this. It would have been nice to learn this the episode before and not the same episode. Like foreshadowing, and think about like, what are we doing later this season? Oh, we're going to do this the next. So why don't we put this maybe the episode before? So that way people have to remember that the episode before we talked about it. Anyway, so Ellie and Dina are together in like a theater, and Dina is using math to figure out how far they need to go, using a map and like actual like drawing lines and doing calculations stuff. And Ellie's like, you're smart and I'm not. You're doing all the smart stuff. I'm gonna go do the labor of sweeping and making sure that we're still alone. And so they figure out this path. There's a lot of just random sort of banter conversation back and forth. And they eventually go and they see these the cult people. Some of them are dead and like bashed on this wall, and it's like there's like something like written like "Feel Her Love," and then there's like "Feel This Bitch" like written by the wolves above it, and like some dead bodies that have been there for a while, and freaks Ellie out, and she's worried. She doesn't want anything to happen to Dina. And so while out in the open, they stand there and talk about this story about, because Dina's like, "You never asked me about my first kill." And Ellie's like, "Okay." Like, this is a weird time. You guys are kind of out in the open, exposed, and people can hear you talk, but by all means, let's do this. So we learn about Dina's first kill, which was kind of sad. I mean, but also kind of odd. I mean, so she lived in a cabin with her mom and her sister, and she used to want to go out and play outside, but her mom would never let her. And then one day she did, and she felt like she was okay because she had a gun. And then she came back, and there was a raider that had broken into the house and had killed the mom and sister. And she came running in and like shot the raider. And she remembers that the raider looked surprised to see her. And I'm like, are you, because if you had stayed home, you would have been part of those three. Is it survivor's guilt? Because the story feels like that the moral of the story is don't leave the house. My mom told me not to go outside, and I did anyway. But that has no bearing or relevance on anything that happens to her. If anything, it made her alive. Her decision to go boldly where no mother had allowed her to go before is the reason why Dina's alive, and her mom and sister are not. So it's a weird story, but now we learn Dina's backstory just a little bit more. So Ellie and Dina decide to move forward because duh. We gotta keep going, you know. And eventually they get spotted and end up being chased, and they duck into this building that has a whole bunch of stalkers in it. And so we get a whole stalker sequence instead of just one. Like, she thinks it's one at first. Ellie's like, "Oh, well, there's two of us and one of them. We'll be fine." Oh, no. There's like a stalker army inside of here. So she reminds Dina that she can be bit. So she has Dina run for this cage while she distracts and tries to get the stalkers to come to her. And then her and Dina just are kind of like fighting them all off. And then kind of out of nowhere, right as Ellie has run out of bullets and Dina's out of bullets and they're both about to be defeated, luckily, in the most... we did not write this well. I love this show, but we did not write this well. So Jesse just walks in, and he's got like a mask on, and he just walks in and just clears the remaining. And then I love that they run too from this guy. They're like, "Oh, never mind, this guy's scary." So they all run from Jesse. Jesse just shows up. He's like, "Hey, I followed you guys." I'm like, that's a tall order. You found them in Seattle. They walked to Seattle, and you guys thought, I bet they made it all the way there, and we'll find them. And they happened to find the map in the theater. There's a whole lot we didn't explain here. There's like a ton of stuff. They're like, "Did you come alone?" It's like, "No, I came with Tommy," you know? So Tommy's out there somewhere too. It's like, great, more characters who might die. Excellent. Good choices. We're making great life choices. So I don't know how it plays in the video game, but this felt very like unnecessarily written. Like, the writing was not great here. Jesse was not great at explaining himself or how they found the map. He just does. Could you imagine trying to find a map, like a shred of evidence of Dina and Ellie's existence in Seattle? Especially when you're not from there and you're struggling to go in, and you see all the stuff that Ellie and Abby have gone through so far to get there. And the only reason that they know to go to the hospital is because they heard it over the radio. So did Jesse hear it over the radio? How do they know where they're headed? You know, anything like that. Seattle is a huge city. They could be anywhere in Seattle. It is so random. It is so weird. Uh, it's uh, I've liked the last two episodes ever since they killed Joel. I thought episodes 3 and 4 were solid episodes. I thought 3 was a great way to mourn Joel. I thought 4 had an excellent subway sequence of just fucking great. Just that whole sequence was great. But Jesse walking into this room made me go, God damn it! There goes your Emmy. There goes your Emmy. It's gone. Um, so they leave with Jesse, but the wolves see them again, so they run into the forest, but the wolves won't go into the forest because that's where the cult lives, and the cult is incapable of, I don't know, not being weird as shit. So they're like in the middle of gutting somebody, which is not great for them because they, as Dina's pointed out, she doesn't think that the cult has guns because they live, and she tries to explain to Ellie what Amish people were. So she's like, well, these are basically like Amish people. Like they live in sort of like old timey stuff and they use like bows and arrows. So I don't know, like the leader of them just gutted a wolf openly in front of them and the guts fell out of the guy. It's gory, nice and gory for the zombie series. And so they end up, Dina ends up getting shot in the leg with an arrow, and Ellie has Jesse take Dina and split up and get out of there, and Ellie sort of runs off on her own to try to hide. So they split up from the group, so we don't see Jesse and Dina again in this episode because they go somewhere. Presumably they're fine. I'm sure they are. Since we don't veer from the video game, I guess, gotta maintain the integrity of the video games. I'll have a hot take on that in a minute, probably, if I decide to say something. Anyway, so Ellie is, I don't know, running and dunking into tall grass, and then the wolves, they have like an actual dog, so catches her, and then she has to like crawl into a wall, into a hole, and eventually she gets into the hospital, where eventually she finds Nora, and through nice happenstance, and tries to get Nora to tell her where Abby is. Nora won't do it, and this is where we kind of find out that even though everybody we initially saw, they were a little bit trepidatious about Joel, Nora's not. Nora's like, no, that bitch deserved to die. He got what he deserved. So she is able to break away from Ellie and run, and she's like, invader, intruder. So they're being chased, but Ellie is not going to give up. She doesn't care if people are shooting at her or not. She's going to get Nora. So she chases Nora down into like the dead end hallway, which is really important because it's the hallway that is where they would go to the floor that's sealed off. So even though the floor is sealed off, they didn't close the elevator. I know it's non-operational because as soon as Nora steps into it, it falls. So a non-operational elevator wasn't sealed off, and it falls to the floor that they were talking about in the beginning, which is all very, again, circumstantial, again, with the telegraphing to the audience that this is all going to happen. I'm like, I thought you said you sealed it off. If you have a non-operational elevator that could fall at any time to the floor of danger, then why didn't you seal the elevator doors? Like, why is that not blocked off? So that Nora can fall down. It obviously is the obvious answer. So Nora falls down, and Ellie climbs down. She didn't know anything. Neither did Nora. Nora has no idea what's down there. But when Ellie finds Nora, Nora's already choking from the stuff that Ellie's immune to. And Nora's like, you're crazy, you killed us both. Ellie's like, did I? Because she sees the stuff on the walls. And she's like, I know what this is. She even turns on a light switch, too. There's a light switch on the wall. It's all like in dark, and then she just illuminates everything. So, so she just stands over Nora. Nora has the realization. She's like, "You're the girl. You're real. You're immune. Did you know what Joel did?" And this is where Ellie reveals that she knew. She knew what Joel did, which is duh, because that's why she's been mad at him this whole time. Like, in the whole first episode, did we think that Ellie was just having feelings for no apparent reason whatsoever? No, I mean, obviously she knew Joel got her out of there by any means necessary. So she's aware, and but she's obviously come to peace with it, and everything comes full circle as Nora is lying there choking, dying, won't say anything about Abby, won't repent, nothing. She's not apologizing for anything. She's just like, yeah, Joel killed the one person that could have, created a cure from you. And Ellie goes over. She sees like a large pipe, not a golf club. Would have been hilarious if it was like another like sports apparatus. So it was like a direct sort of like, you see what we're doing here? It's not a golf club, but it's a cricket racket. It's a cricket bat. God. One of these done. What's a tennis racket doing down here? I don't know. We're gonna. Oh, look, a baseball bat. What does it say? Lucille. Huh, weird. Anyway, I'll use this. So now she finds like a lead pipe and just starts bashing the shit out of Nora. And that's where we cut away. Is with Ellie doing to Nora what Abby did to Joel. So the violence has come full circle, just not on the right person. I mean, she doesn't have an Abby to do it to right now, but Nora will suffice. Ellie's working her shit out. So this was not my favorite episode of the season. While I didn't like episode 2, at least episode 2 had the whole zombie amazingness. That whole scene at Jackson was amazing. So even if like you didn't like the other part of it, which I didn't, even if there was a conflict, there is half that episode that is a huge kick-ass battle, which is really fun. So half that episode is great. This one feels like we have to get through what we have to get through because the video game got through it. Like, there are certain things that we have to do, but we don't have time to explain them. So we're going to explain them to you in a lot more obvious form, and we're not going to answer all your questions. Like, Jesse shows up with, and we're just supposed to accept that as his explanation and then move forward. And I don't know that that's a great explanation. I don't fully buy it. I don't like the heavy sort of telegraphing at the beginning, which leads to the end. I mean, there's a lot here about this episode that I think was kind of lazily written. I don't check who writes every episode and who directs every episode, but the thing about TV shows is that often they do have they have a showrunner who's responsible for sort of continuity and keeping the sort of general theme and moods for every episode. But there are different writers and directors for every episode. And to me, this is the weakest of the episodes of the season, like by far. There were a lot of sort of story issues that nobody really ever sat and thought and was like, is this really this is the best place to have this conversation? Is this the strongest place? Did we answer all the questions? Is this how we wrap this up? I don't know what this is in the video game. Sometimes I watch somebody talk from the video game perspective and other times I don't. I think about the video game perspective as somebody who I'm a fan of things, and I've struggled with that too, because when you're a fan of something and you don't want them to deviate from the source material, you have to think about like, what is it about the source material and what was the deviation that they chose? How bad was the deviation? And I've thought about things in the past where they've deviated from source material and it was pointless. Like, there were things that they deviated from that actually had a point and then they chose not to do it. Just to get super nerdy, but Divergent. The sequels are terrible. The first movie's fine. It's actually not that far from the book, and the changes that they made were sort of the typical changes that you would make for the first film. But in the second movie, that's when you find out she's not the only one that's divergent, because Uriah is. But they didn't do that. They decided, instead of this huge revelation of there being more divergence, like there are more people, they decided, nah, So they made sort of like a huge change to the whole book series on their own without ever thinking about the ramifications of anything moving forward. So I thought that was weird. I didn't like that. It sort of made me hate like the next two movies because they started making a lot of changes. They left out characters. I mean, the sequels were not great to Divergent, which is why we never finished that franchise. Um, but like Hunger Games, for example, I understood why they made the change. So they had a change from the book, which was that I got, and I totally understood, like from book to film, it doesn't translate, which was the wolves. The wolf hybrids in the first movie are supposed to look like the tributes. They're like a hybrid of these giant wolves, but they're also like all the tributes who have died previously have somehow been morphed into, which kind of sounds horrifying. And if you put that together in film, you might lose your PG-13 rating. So they just went with wolves that were not part of the tributes. It sounded like something that was really hard to conceptualize in a way that wasn't going to look like shitty CGI. So, like a half wolf, half dead hybrid, half dead tribute. You know, it was a weird thing in the book anyway. So when they dropped that, I was like, well, it's impactful because you know that this is the strength that, but you already see all the terrible things that the Capitol is doing, so it's not that big. It would be weirder if they had eliminated every other tribute and then Katniss was the only tribute that ever existed, which is not true. Like if Haymitch had never been in the movie, or if PETA didn't make it out of the first Hunger Games, and they were just like, well, Katniss is the only one, which is kind of what they do with Divergent. So Walking Dead has diverged a lot from the comic book series. Some to great effect. They keep you on your toes by, first of all, they did something brilliant, which was create a character that doesn't exist. Right from the beginning, they created somebody who had no ties to, actually created a couple people, because Merle and Daryl, who weren't in the comic book. So you couldn't predict their future. They could die at any moment. They could live forever. Obviously, Daryl Dixon lived forever. But then they started playing with, well, who lives and who dies at what time. And Andrea died really early on in the series and lived instead of living forever. And they basically gave her arc mostly to Carol. I mean, I would say Carol ended up living way past her death. And they started doing this thing where somebody took somebody else's death. And so a different character would die at a point that was supposed to be that character, but then somebody else would die, and then they would push that other person forward, and then that character would live or die. So, for example, right before the big death of Glenn, we just saw what would have been Abraham's death sequence, but it was given to, her name was Denise. It was Merritt Weaver's character, but it was Abraham's death sequence from the comic books. And Abraham wasn't even there for it. So it's not even like he just dodged it. It just wasn't his death. So it was hers. So Tara got to react to that, and it set up the series sort of in an interesting way because they did the same iconic, arrow through the eye thing. But it just didn't happen to Abraham, which set him up to be available to die in Glenn's place, which they should have left it there. But then they also decided to pull Glenn from the comic book. So, and then people freaked out, even though that was what happened in the comic book. So the thing about doing source material is that you have people, you're never going to appease everybody. And Neil Druckmann seems to be absolutely bound to his source material as much as humanly possible. He likes to explore when he can, like the episode that featured the couple that the game didn't get to explore. He likes to be able to expand when he can, when he's like, well, there's a story that I didn't get to, but that couple still existed. It wasn't like a couple that didn't exist. So he seems bound to whatever he did before in a way that is sort of like he's unwilling to admit that fans of the game also didn't like maybe what transpired. Because now you have people who have never watched The Last of Us and are only watching it from a series perspective. You have people who played the video game and liked the video game the way that it is. You also have people who played the video game and didn't like the video game the way that it is. So who are you appealing to? You're appealing to one of those three things. So the other two, you're not appealing to, because you're not trying to play around. You're not trying to pick and choose when to. You're not really changing the medium. So if this is how Jesse just shows up and he's like, yeah, we followed you, I found a map in a theater, and like that's it. That's dumb. It's inherently stupid, and I would have called it out in the video game. I'm like, where the fuck did this dude come from? We walked to Seattle. It's the problem The Walking Dead now has, where like they're all over the country. There's no internet. There's and they keep finding each other. I'm like, how do you find somebody who's in like a different state, in a cabin in the woods? You know, like with what? With what knowledge and with what system? What underground railroad are you using to find these people? So it should be one of those things like in The Walking Dead where it's like if you get far enough away from somebody, they really can't find you. They really don't know where you went because it's like the possibilities are endless. So, but no, they don't play that. Instead, they play the, oh, we've we found your wife down in Tennessee. It's like, isn't this New York? Like, what? How did you? Anyway, so I don't know. It gets kind of like think things through, make good choices, make smart choices. You don't have to appeal to the fans of the original series because obviously that's what The Walking Dead did, and that was also the downfall of The Walking Dead, and it's turning out to be the downfall of The Last of Us, with people on the internet not shutting up about Joel's death, which I agree was a dumb decision. I made a video about it because I saw the thing already. I'm surprised nobody brought this up and be like, are we doing the Glenn thing again? Is this just Glenn all over again where, yeah, it did happen in the original, but now the TV audience is way too attached to him and we can't kill him off? Probably. I mean, you know, thoughts. But at the same time, like they had conversations like they do have. Dina and Ellie are just like out, you know, they're just out and about. And they stop and have this conversation. Like, are you guys not worried about patrol? Like, I mean, there's so many scenes here where I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing in this episode? So I like the other episodes. I thought they were good because there was a lot of like problem and consequence and resolution to things. And we saw, I do like the juxtaposition of Ellie doing exactly what Abby did. And even if it's like through a surrogate of Nora, I kind of felt like that was always going to happen. So I like that. There are things that I like in this episode. But this episode, for the first time, I think in ever, actually had more things that gave me pause than made me go, oh, that was really cool. Oh, I love that. Like, also the stalkers. Like, I liked that sequence. But as soon as Jesse walks in that room, they all run away. Like, what is it about Jesse? Is it his cologne? I mean, he shoots a couple of them, but you would think that the other stalkers, like, what was it about? I don't know. They were dropping anyway. Like, Ellie and Dina were killing off plenty of stalkers before, so why did they think they had the upper hand before? And then Jesse came in the room, and then they're like, oh shit, he killed a couple of us. This guy means business. Those two girls didn't, but this guy's for real. This guy's a real deal, man. We gotta run. I don't know. It's just things, reasons. We also need more Jeffrey Wright. Like, what's the point of bringing Jeffrey Wright in the series and then like underutilizing him to the point at which we've underutilized him? I don't get it. But I'm assuming we'll get more of him down the line. Audio description was excellent, obviously. I mean, there was gore. There was at least one zombie sequence that was an extended zombie sequence with the stalkers. So, yeah. But this is the lowest grade I've given to a Last of Us episode, I think, ever. Except maybe the Joel episode. I can't even remember what I gave that episode. I struggled with this episode. It didn't have enough to redeem it. It just sort of had a lot of beats where I was like, I don't know. Don't do that. No, don't go. Oh, okay. Well, of course we're going to over there. It felt very like obvious, and it felt very like unnecessary. So, which is something that I don't like from The Last of Us. And I'm not doing it from the, oh my God, you're not following the video game. We have to keep to the video game. There are people out there who have this video game conversation where they're like, uh, Critical Drinker, for example, right? So he's like, "You killed off Joel. You can't do that." Well, now we've got Bella Ramsey who can't anchor the series because she's nothing like Ellie from the. I'm like, wait a minute. So you don't want Joel to die because reasons, but you also don't like Bella Ramsey's performance because it's not like Ellie from the series. So you're also sort of admitting that it's bullshit. Like, you don't actually need it to follow the video game, but you're going to try to use it to fit your narrative of I need you to follow the video game. I'm admitting, please don't follow the video game. Use it occasionally, like throw callbacks to it, but there should be a reason why you're adapting it to this medium. I think you have to pick out the strongest points of the series and make sure you hold tight to the things that are like the tenets, which is why I was mentioning the thing about Divergent. I think it's really important that Divergent had shown that other people were in fact divergent. So I think that is actually really important to the series, that there were other people who were capable of doing what Triss was able to do in Divergent. But then Hunger Games totally understood some of the changes they were making in Hunger Games. This, and Harry Potter, by the way. Although we're going to get a series, so I'm guessing we're finally going to get all those long-ass books that couldn't cram all their stuff into the movies. And the books were just too long. They're never going to get all that shit in the movies. I read the Harry Potter books, and I thought the movies were fine. I mean, I understood the cuts, and they all made sense. I mean, the movies couldn't be as long as that, and there wasn't anything where I was like, oh my god, where did that thing go? So, yeah, I'm not for source material stuff. I just, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Taskmaster in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just terrible and just makes no sense and is absolutely nothing like the character from the comic books. So I think you have to kind of maintain at least some sort of semblance of the character from the comic books and not just totally dumb down a character to the point where it doesn't even look like Taskmaster and you just named it that. Like, well, we're going to call it Taskmaster. Okay. It's nothing like it, but you do you. So that's the thing about fandoms is it's tough, but it's tough when you're inside the fandom. It's tough when you created the thing. And I think that's the problem of having Neil Druckmann as being in charge, is that he believes everything he did the first time was great. So everything's going to be great this time. And I don't know that that's the case. Not everything translates cinematically, and cinematic opens up an opportunity for you to go places you couldn't go before. So it gives you an opportunity to make a change to something that didn't work in the video game. It gives you opportunities. Take them. I'm going to give The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5 a B-. The acting is still on point, and I absolutely want Bella Ramsey to get a Best Actress Emmy nomination. I'm very impressed with them. They did make a comment, but they are, interestingly, not for gender-neutral categories, even as probably one of the more well-known non-binary actresses out there. So Bella's perfectly comfortable submitting in the actress in a drama series category, and it doesn't support gender neutral because I think they see the problem that women are still not quite recognized at the same level. We still have a lot of issues to overcome. Anyway, we've gone 97 years at the Oscars without ever giving an award to a female cinematographer, magically. So there's one. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.